welcome to this deep dive, curated specifically for you. I was thinking about how we usually talk about creativity like it's this incredibly rare trait.
Oh, yeah, like a superpower or something.
Exactly, like being double jointed or having perfect pitch, right? You either have it or you don't. Or, well, if we don't think it's genetic, we treat it like trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
Right.
You just have to stand out in the storm, exhaust yourself, and, pray you get struck.
And honestly, it's just exhausting thinking about it that way. I mean, we treat inspiration as this elusive, unpredictable force.
Yeah, reserved only for, artists of a capital A.
Exactly. While the rest of us just sit around in our offices or at our kitchen tables, basically waiting for a drop of genius to magically fall from the sky. And, well, when it doesn't, we feel like we've somehow failed.
But then you step into the framework of Elizabeth Gilbert's philosophy, specifically the concept she lays out in her bestseller, Big Magic, creative living beyond fear, and suddenly that entire paradigm just gets flipped upside down.
It really does. I mean, we aren't waiting for the lightning bolt anymore. We're looking at a creative landscape that operates under completely different physical laws.
It's wild. And our mission today for you isn't to give you some rigid, 10-step corporate checklist on how to brainstorm or how to unlock your inner innovator.
Right, no checklist here.
Yeah, our goal is to fundamentally shift how you view inspiration itself. Whether you are prepping for a massive business presentation, trying to write a novel in your spare time, or honestly, just feeling mentally stuck in your daily routine. We want to help you bypass that paralyzing information overload and tap straight into pure curiosity.
And to do that, we're going to navigate through the core elements of Gilbert's creative philosophy. So we're talking about concepts like courage, enchantment, permission, persistence, trust, and divinity.
It sounds like a lot, but it all connects perfectly.
It does. And I think the most effective way to understand how they all fit together is to just jump straight into the deep end, right? With the most radical concept she presents.
Oh, I know exactly where you were going with this. We have to talk about how she defines what an idea actually is, because this absolutely threw me for a loop.
It's a huge paradigm shift.
It is. I mean, we typically assume an idea is just a thought, right? Like a byproduct of our own brain chemistry firing off synapses. But Gilbert asks us to imagine something wildly different.
She asks us to view ideas as completely separate living entities.
Which is just wow.
Yeah, in her framework, ideas are out there in the world, totally independent from humans, and they actually possess their own consciousness. Like they are an energy form entirely separate from us.
Okay, wait, let me just pause and unpack this because it sounds a bit wild. Ideas are basically like benevolent, invisible ghosts wandering the earth looking for a human host to haunt with a great business pitch or a screenplay.
That is the literal proposition, yes.
Yeah.
These conscious ideas are actively seeking human collaborators.
Oh.
Because they don't have bodies. I mean, they need us to bring them into the physical world. They need our opposable thumbs, our voices, our keyboards to actually make that transition from the ether into reality.
Okay, but I mean, if I'm sitting in a Tuesday morning strategy meeting trying to figure out quarterly goals, thinking of my solutions as conscious metaphysical entities floating around the conference room feels, I don't know, a bit out there. Does she really mean this literally, or is this just a poetic metaphor?
No, she leans into it quite literally, and she uses a phenomenal story to back it up.
Yeah.
Let's look at the famous anecdote she shares about a novel she wanted to write.
Oh, the Amazon jungle one.
Exactly. So, Gilbert had this very specific idea for a novel set in the Amazon jungle. It involves a middle-aged spinster from Minnesota, an ambitious construction project, and this very specific plot line. So she worked on it, gathered research, and then, life just got in the way.
Right, as it does.
Yeah, so she put it in a drawer and neglected it for a couple of years.
And if an idea is a conscious entity that wants to be born, it's probably not going to be very happy sitting in a dark drawer.
Precisely. So when she finally returned to the project, the idea was just gone. She couldn't feel the spark anymore.
Wow.
And not long after, she met the brilliant novelist Ann Patchett. They became friends, and a little while later, Patchett mentioned she was working on a new book. She described the plot, and it was a novel set in the Amazon jungle involving a spinster from Minnesota and the exact same core narrative framework.
Oh, wow. Wait, did she think Patchett stole it?
Not at all. They had never discussed the book before.
Oh.
Gilbert's conclusion wasn't theft. Her conclusion was that the idea simply got tired of waiting for her.
That is great.
It realized Gilbert wasn't going to bring it to life, so it literally left her, traveled through the ether, and knocked on Ann Patchett's door instead. Patchett said yes, and she eventually published the beautiful novel State of Wonder.
That is incredibly eerie, but also strangely comforting. I mean, how many times have you, the person listening right now, had a brilliant idea for an app or a product and you sat on it? Then 2 years later, you see someone else launch that exact thing.
Oh, all the time.
Right. We always beat ourselves up thinking, oh, they stole my genius.
But according to this philosophy, you aren't a genius at all. In fact, Gilbert resurrects the ancient Roman definition of the word.
Right. The Romans had a totally different take on it.
Yeah, they didn't believe someone was a genius. They believed someone had a genius.
Yeah.
It was like an external guiding spirit that visited you to help you create.
So if the idea works out beautifully, you get to say, wow, my genius and I collaborated really well. But if the idea is a total flop,
If it flops, you don't have to carry the crushing weight of believing you are fundamentally flawed. You just say, well, the genius gave me some weird blueprints this time, or
yeah,
that specific idea, and I just couldn't make it work.
I love that. Viewing ideas as external partners creates this massive psychological buffer against failure. It completely removes the ego.
It really does. And by removing that ego, it explains why you have to cultivate so much courage. Because if these ideas are constantly buzzing around, knocking on our doors, the only thing required of us is the bravery to actually answer the door.
And answering the door is the terrifying part, right? Because of course we are afraid. We're afraid of looking foolish, of wasting time, of being rejected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Gilbert has a very practical approach to fear. She doesn't tell you to conquer it or banish it.
Mm-hmm.
She says that trying to be completely fearless is impossible and honestly kind of sociopathic.
Yeah, I love her analogy for this. She treats fear and creativity like they're going on a road trip together. Like you are driving the minivan, creativity is in the passenger seat, and fear is absolutely allowed to come along for the ride.
Yes, you have to make space for it.
Exactly. You make space for it in the back seat. It's allowed to look out the window and make comments. But fear is never, ever allowed to touch the steering wheel.
It is about living a life driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear. You acknowledge the fear, you respect it, but you just don't let it dictate your actions.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say I've accepted this. I'm listening to this deep dive, I'm feeling courageous, I've got my fear strapped into the back seat, and I'm ready to collaborate with the universe. What is actually stopping me? Why do we constantly put up roadblocks if the ideas are just waiting for us?
Well, the biggest roadblocks are the gatekeepers. And the trickiest part is that most of those gatekeepers are entirely in our own heads.
Oh, for sure.
We operate under this heavy societal assumption that we need official permission to be creative. We think we need a credential, a specific degree, or a critic's approval before we are allowed to call ourselves a writer or an innovator or an artist.
Right, the classic imposter syndrome, like, I can't write this business book because I don't have an MBA, or I can't paint because I didn't go to art school.
Gilbert violently rejects that. She argues that human beings are fundamentally creative by nature. Our ancestors didn't wait for a diploma to start painting on cave walls or inventing new tools.
No, they just did it.
Right. Creativity is your birthright. You don't need a permission slip from the principal's office. You just have to grant it to yourself.
And she gives some very pointed, practical advice here about formal education. She actively discourages people from going into massive debt to get an expensive arts degree.
The reasoning behind that is fascinating. If you take out $100,000 in loans to get an MFA, you are instantly changing the stakes of your creativity.
You really are.
You are taking something that should be playful and experimental and weighing it down with a massive financial anvil. Furthermore, in those academic environments, you often end up trying to create things just to please a professor or fit an academic mold,
rather than communing purely with the idea itself, which feeds directly into our toxic obsession with originality. We live in a culture that worships disruption. Everything has to be unprecedented, never before seen. And if you are trying to be perfectly original, you will just paralyze yourself.
because practically everything has been done. I mean, the archives of human history are vast.
Yeah.
But Gilbert offers a much healthier target.
Don't strive for originality. Strive for authenticity.
Authenticity over originality.
Yes. The idea might have been done before, but it has never been done through the specific, unique lens of you. Your life experiences, your tone, your perspective, that is what makes the collaboration special.
Okay, I want to pause and wrestle with a couple of her rules here because they go against almost everything we are taught about ambition and purpose. First, she says you should absolutely not try to use your creativity to, quote, help others. You should do it purely for yourself.
Yeah, that one trips people up. It trips me up. I struggle with that. Isn't that incredibly selfish? Especially today, when we are constantly told our work needs to have a social impact or a broader purpose. If I'm just writing a story or building an app for my own amusement, aren't I just being a narcissist?
It feels counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
But think about the incredible burden that places on a fledgling idea.
Mm.
If you demand that your newly hatched creative project has to save the rainforest, or heal society's trauma, or fix your family's dynamic, you are suffocating it before it can even walk.
Right.
The pressure is just way too high.
You're asking a toddler to pay the mortgage.
Exactly. When you create something purely because it brings you joy or because it scratches an itch of curiosity, the work is like, it's playful. And the beautiful irony is that when you create from a place of unburdened joy, the final product is often so authentic and resonant that it does end up helping other people.
But the moment you make helping others the mandatory objective, you kill the magic.
You kill the magic.
That reframes it perfectly. It's not about being selfish. It's about protecting the ecosystem where ideas can actually survive. Which leads me to my second major point of friction with her philosophy, the day job.
Yeah.
Gilbert is adamant that you must keep your day job. You should not quit to pursue your passion full time. Now, this completely violates the entire burn the boats mythology we hear from every startup founder and motivational speaker. We are told that if you don't risk it all, you don't want it badly enough.
Well, the burn the boats mentality makes for a great movie script, but it usually makes for a miserable, anxiety-riddled life.
Seriously.
Gilbert points out that demanding your art or your creativity pay your rent, buy your groceries, and fund your health insurance is incredibly cruel to your creativity. You are turning your beautiful, magical collaborator into a stressed-out minimum wage employee.
But logically, let's look at the logistics. If I am working at a bank for 40 hours a week and I'm commuting for another 10 hours and I have a family, when am I supposed to commune with these magical ideas? Doesn't the day job physically steal the time I need to be great at my craft? If I don't go full time, aren't I just planning for mediocrity?
But that assumes creativity requires endless, uninterrupted 8-hour blocks of time, doesn't?
It doesn't.
No, it requires devoted, joyful time. Gilbert argues that 30 minutes of unburdened, playful writing before you go to the office is infinitely more productive than sitting at a desk for 8 hours, staring at a blank page, panicking, because if you don't write a bestseller, you'll get evicted.
Oh, wow. The financial terror destroys the channel.
Exactly. By keeping your day job, you become the patron of your own art. You are telling the idea, don't worry, I've got the bills covered, I will feed us. You just show up and let's play. It allows you to maintain the persistence required to finish things because you can actually afford to fail.
So you aren't hedging your bets. You are actively defending the creative process from capitalism.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. And once you have protected the idea financially, you have to protect it emotionally. Which brings us to another massive cultural trope that Gilbert takes a sledgehammer to. The suffering artist.
Oh, we love the suffering artist.
We really do.
We romanticize the 19th century bohemian starving in a garret. We have been sold this myth that to make great art or to do truly innovative work, you have to be miserable. You have to be tormented. Angst is the required fuel for genius.
And she forcefully rejects that myth. In fact, she tackles it head on, touching on very dark realities like madness, suicide, alcohol, and drug addiction, specifically to point out how utterly unhelpful they are.
Yeah.
Suffering does not make your work better. Suffering just gets in the way of you doing the work.
It's almost like an excuse, like if I'm not tormented, I'm not a real artist, so I don't have to put my work out there.
Exactly. And Gilbert argues that the universe is not asking you to suffer, it's asking you to pay attention. She challenges us to trust in creativity and become far more playful, which leads to one of the most liberating pieces of advice in her entire framework. She tells us to completely ignore the phrase, follow your passion.
Which is wild because follow your passion is the theme of literally every commencement speech given in the last 20 years.
Right.
It's on every motivational poster. Why is passion a trap?
Because passion is intimidating.
Yeah.
Passion is a towering flame. Sometimes you wake up on a Tuesday and you don't feel a burning, life-defining passion for anything.
Most Tuesdays, honestly.
Right. And if you believe you must have a passion to move forward, you just freeze. Instead, she says, ignore passion and follow your curiosity.
I love the distinction there. Passion demands that you be willing to bleed for a cause. Curiosity is just like a little tug on your sleeve. It's mild. It's a scavenger hunt. You just see something shiny and think, what's over there? Let me look into that.
Yes. Curiosity is low stakes. It leads you gently from one small clue to the next, and if you trust that process, it will eventually lead you to where you need to be. Your only job is to trust the scavenger hunt. And this is crucial. Totally detach yourself from the results.
That's the hard part.
The outcome, the reviews, the sales numbers, the promotion, none of that is your business.
Which brings us to the ultimate grand contradiction of this entire deep dive. The final element of her philosophy is divinity. And here she claims that the creative process is simultaneously deeply sacred and completely, utterly not sacred.
It's quite a paradox.
I'm genuinely trying to wrap my head around it. How do we practically apply this? We're supposed to treat this process as a divine, magical interaction with cosmic entities, but also treat it like it's a completely unimportant, silly little game. How do you hold both of those conflicting thoughts in your head at the same time without short-circuiting?
It is the hardest part of the philosophy to master, but it really is the secret to a sustainable, creative life. Think of it like building an incredibly intricate sandcastle on the beach.
Okay, I'm with you.
While you are building that sandcastle, you are entirely devoted to it. You are sculpting the towers, smoothing the walls, meticulously planning the moat. You are applying the dedication of a monk. That is the sacred part. You are honoring the idea that chose to visit you, and you are doing the hard work to bring it into the physical world.
But, well, you also know the tide is coming in.
Exactly. You know the ocean is going to wash it all away, and you are perfectly fine with that. That is the not sacred part. You have to care immensely about doing the work, but you cannot care at all about its permanence or how the beachgoers judge it.
So it's a divine collaboration, but at the end of the day, it's just a painting. It's just a podcast. It's just a marketing strategy. It doesn't define your worth as a human being.
You show up with the reverence of a priest and the lightness of a child at play. If it fails or if people hate it, it doesn't destroy you because you hold it lightly. You just brush off your hands, look out at the ocean, and wait for the next idea to invite you to play.
That is beautiful and incredibly freeing. Okay. Let's zoom out and look at the ultimate shortcuts we've pulled from this deep dive for you today. If you want to tap into the big magic Elizabeth Gilbert is talking about, you have to unlearn a lot of the heavy, miserable rules we've been taught.
So many rules.
Yeah. You don't need a $100,000 degree. You don't need anyone's permission to call yourself a creator. You absolutely do not need to suffer, bleed, or go mad for your work. You don't even need a burning, life-defining passion.
Yep.
What you do need is to follow the gentle tug of your curiosity. You need to keep your day job so you can pay your bills and keep the financial pressure off your ideas. And most importantly, you need to acknowledge that your ego isn't in charge.
The burden of being a solitary genius is lifted. You are simply a host. You are welcoming an idea into your home, pouring in a cup of coffee, and seeing what the two of you can build together before the tide comes in.
And that brings us to a final, lingering thought for you to mull over today. Think back to how we started, talking about creativity like it's this rare lightning strike that you have to pray hits you.
Which we now know isn't true.
Right. What if it's not? If this framework is true, and ideas really are conscious entities buzzing around us right now looking for a willing, playful partner, what specific idea has been quietly tapping you on the shoulder lately? And what happens to that idea if you don't finally say yes?